This is a Ford Model T, two-door. They call it Tudor, two-door, and it was made in Walkerville, Ontario. I've had it since 1993. Yeah, I've driven it a lot, like probably 50,000 miles, or how many kilometers is that? 80,000 kilometers. Over the years. My family and I used to go on holiday in it, and we used to tow a little tent trailer behind. We drove to Niagara Falls one year and camped over for a week in a campsite, and went out touring every day, and then drove it home again. And we did about 600 miles, about nearly 1,000 kilometers in the week. It doesn't go, I mean, you wouldn't take it on the 401, but we drove along number 3 highway. And, yeah, it goes fine. I bought it it was advertised in the London Free Press, and I came from England in 1983, and always loved old cars, and could never afford them because they're a lot more expensive in UK. And part of the reason for that is because most old cars were scrapped in the war for scrap metal, so there's not antique cars are a lot rarer there, so they're more valuable, of course. So I could never afford one, and then when I came here they were a little more affordable and was able to buy something. It was in bad shape, yeah. It belonged to an older gentleman. It hadn't been started since 1969. It belonged to an older gentleman, and he passed away. His son inherited it, but his son didn't drive it much. And actually, when he was courting his wife, he took her out for a ride in the car, and he stalled it on railroad tracks, so she never wanted to, and the train was coming. Anyway, in the end they pushed it off and got it out the way just before the train came, so she never wanted to ride in it again. So it sat in the garage from 1969 or 1970 right till 1993 when I got it. And it didn't run. It hadn't run for all those years. And I brought it home and fixed a few things and tinkered with it over the winter, and yeah, got it going, and we've had some very enjoyable times. And my daughter drove it here today. Yeah. And this is it says mostly about it on the front, but anyway. But I bought it from a gentleman in St. Thomas. He bought it back from Saskatchewan, and he was going to fix it up. It had sat in a junkyard in Saskatchewan for between 40 and 50 years. So the bodywork was in really, really bad shape. The engine and the chassis, the running gear as it were, he'd done a lot of work on and spent a lot of time and money on. But when he got to the body, because it had sat outside for so long, he kind of gave up. And silly enough, he put it outside again for another few years, which really wasn't good because the engine was seized again when I got it. And but anyway, I got it going, and then I bought a new back end of the bodywork. I had somebody made it to match, you know, and the front is this part is the original part that came with it, and then the back end is remade. But anyway, yeah, it's a 1921, so it'll be 100 years old next year. And it's a Model T Speedster or Model T Racer. And in the early days of cars, they used to do things like hill climbs and see who could climb the hills. And surprisingly enough, Model Ts did really well because they're so lightweight and so sort of nimble. And the bigger cars, they were too heavy and they couldn't go up fast enough and stuff like that. So yeah, Model Ts in the early days were pretty good race cars as well. Robert Slee in Shedden.